It was a crisp autumn evening, the clock striking precisely 9:32, when Clara, Lucas, Mariana, and Diego finally reached the Valley of Silence. The air was thick with an eerie chill, and the fading sunlight cast long, jagged shadows across the desolate landscape. The valley, nestled between towering, rugged mountains, was infamous for a grim local legend. Any sound made within its borders would return as a distorted, malevolent echo, summoning a sinister presence from beyond. The four young documentarians, armed with cameras, microphones, and a burning curiosity, had come to unravel the truth. They dismissed the tale as mere superstition, their skepticism fueled by a shared resolve to disprove the supernatural once and for all. Clara, the group's fearless leader, was no stranger to the unknown. At 25, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, her sharp hazel eyes scanning the horizon. As a child, she'd heard strange noises in her family's old house, whispers in the dark, footsteps where no one walked, but she'd always chalked them up to an overactive imagination. Now she faced mysteries head-on, determined to find rational explanations. Lucas, the sound technician, fidgeted with his equipment, his wiry frame buzzing with excitement. He was obsessed with capturing the valley's acoustics, his headphones perpetually slung around his neck as he adjusted dials and tested levels. Mariana, the historian of the group, clutched a weathered notebook stuffed with research. Her discovery of an ancient indigenous ritual tied to the valley, a ceremony meant to trap an entity that fed on fear, had only deepened her unease. Diego, the brash skeptic, swaggered ahead, his loud voice cutting through the stillness as he mocked the legend, eager to expose it as nonsense. The valley itself was a haunting sight. Gnarled, leafless trees twisted toward the sky like skeletal hands, their branches swaying faintly in a breeze that carried no sound. The ground was blanketed in dry, brittle leaves that crunched underfoot, though the noise seemed to die instantly, swallowed by an oppressive silence. It was as if the valley held its breath, waiting. As they set up camp near the center of the expanse, Lucas activated his recording devices, expecting to capture the natural hum of the wilderness. Instead, his equipment hissed with static, punctuated by faint, unintelligible whispers that made his skin prickle. "That's strange," Lucas muttered, his brow furrowing as he tapped his microphone. "There's nothing here to cause interference." Clara, peering over his shoulder, shrugged dismissively. "It's probably just the wind playing tricks." Mariana, however, wasn't so sure. She flipped through her notebook, her fingers trembling, slightly. "The legend says the ritual required absolute silence," she said, her voice low. "Any sound could unravel the seal and release the entity trapped here centuries ago." Diego's booming laugh shattered the quiet, echoing off the distant peaks. "What a load of rubbish. Let's test this legend right now." With a grin, he picked up a fist-sized rock and hurled it at a nearby tree. The sharp crack of stone against bark reverberated through the valley, but the echo that returned wasn't a simple reflection. It came back as a raspy, guttural whisper dripping with malice. "You will die." The group exchanged uneasy glances. Diego forced a chuckle, though his bravado faltered. "Just an acoustic fluke," he said, waving it off. The shape of the valley must distort sound, but Clara felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine, an unshakable sensation of being watched. She scanned the shadows, her breath catching as the wind seemed to carry a faint, mocking laugh. As night fell, the group gathered around a small campfire, its flickering light casting eerie shapes on the surrounding trees. Mariana, her voice, barely above a whisper, shared more of her findings. "There are ancient inscriptions carved into rocks not far from here," she explained. "They describe an entity that thrives on fear, a being bound by silence. The ritual trapped it, But any noise, any break in the quiet, frees it to feed on terror through twisted echoes. Lucas leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. How does it manifest? What does it do? Mariana hesitated, her eyes darting to the darkness beyond the firelight. It mimics voices and sounds from your past, things that haunt you. It uses them to drive you mad, to make you scream, so it can grow stronger. Clara's chest tightened. She thought of the whispers from her childhood, soft, pleading voices she'd buried deep. Could they be connected to this place? She pushed, the thought aside, focusing on the present. The first sign of trouble came with a sudden, blood-curdling scream that tore through the valley. The group froze, their eyes wide. Lucas scrambled to check his gear, his hands shaking. "It's off," he stammered. "The recorders are off, that wasn't us." Before anyone could respond, a new sound emerged. A child's cry, high-pitched and desperate, echoing closer with every repetition. Clara's blood ran cold. She knew that cry. It was the same one she'd heard as a little girl, alone in her room at night. Her hands clenched into fists as she whispered, "It's not real. It can't be." But then another voice joined the chorus. Her mother's, soft and sorrowful, gone for 10 years. "Clara, come find me. Please." The words pierced her heart, tears welling in her eyes. She bit her lip hard, forcing herself to stay silent. Lucas flinched as a new sound assaulted him, screeching metal and shattering glass, the exact noise of the car accident that had claimed his parents years ago. His face paled, his breathing ragged. Diego, meanwhile, gripped his head as mocking laughter rang out, taunting him with every insecurity he'd ever buried. His failures, his doubts, his fears of being weak. He gritted his teeth, his bravado crumbling. Mariana's voice cut through the chaos. "It's the entity. It's pulling these sounds from our minds to feed on us. Silence is our only defense. Don't give it power." But it was too late. From the shadows between the trees, a shape began to emerge. A writhing, amorphous mass of darkness, its glowing eyes glinting with hunger. It pulsed and grew with every sound, feeding on their terror. Diego, pushed beyond his limit, let out a guttural yell and bolted into the woods, his screams echoing wildly. The shadow surged after him, swelling with each cry. Then abruptly the noise stopped. Diego was gone, swallowed by the silence. Clara's mind raced. She grabbed Mariana's notebook, flipping frantically to a page she'd glimpsed earlier, a description of a counter-ritual. "It says here we can reseal it," she whispered urgently, careful not to raise her voice. "We have to face our fears without making a sound. If we hold firm, it weakens." She gestured the plan to Lucas and Mariana, her hands trembling. The three sat in a tight circle, eyes squeezed shut, as the entity unleashed a barrage of tormenting sounds. Clara heard her mother's voice again, now begging and sobbing, accusing her of abandonment. Lucas endured the endless replay of his parents' crash, the crunch of metal deafening in his mind. Mariana whimpered silently as visions of her own past failures screamed at her, threatening to break her resolve. The shadow loomed closer, its form sharpening into something grotesque. Clawed limbs, a gaping maw lined with jagged teeth. It hissed and shrieked, desperate to provoke a reaction. But the trio held their ground, their lips sealed despite the agony tearing at their souls. Slowly, painfully, the entity began to shrink, its power draining as their silence starved it. With a final anguished wail that shook the valley, it dissolved into nothingness. The air grew still, the oppressive weight lifting. Clara and Lucas opened their eyes, gasping for breath, relief flooding through them. But Mariana was gone. Her notebook lay abandoned on the ground, a single line scrawled in trembling handwriting. It took me. Don't make a sound. Horror gripped them. Without a word, they gathered their things, smashing their cameras and recorders to pieces. They fled the valley under the cover of dawn, vowing never to speak of that night. Yet in the quietest moments, late at night or in empty rooms, the whispers persisted, faint but relentless, a chilling reminder that the evil they'd faced was not truly gone. It waited, unbound, in the silence.